Broadcasting from the Vancouver Convention Center in British Columbia, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2022, the peak of data integration. Brought to you by Safe Software.
We are here at the FME User Conference in Vancouver in 2022, and we are joined by David Eagle, the FME Division Manager
Correct.
at One
Yep.
Spatial.
That's right.
Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's we're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be out and about and actually interacting in person.
In full 3D.
You're from the UK, we're from the Boston area, and we're all out here in Canada, Western Canada, which is great. It's how it used to be.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with FME. I know the partner stories here are long and storied.
Yeah, it's fun. I worked for an AEC engineering firm in the early 2000s, and I was working with some data, and I was told to go over onto a special machine in the corner of the room where there was this piece of software called FME installed. And I didn't know anything about it, didn't know what it was supposed to do. What I had to do, I had a data challenge. I had to extract some topographic data specifically to do with water courses for our drainage engineers, and put it into AutoCAD DWGs and chop them up into small 1 kilometer tiles. And I was told that this piece of software would do it and I'd get on with it. So I wandered over and started using the machine, and that was 20 years ago, and I've used FME ever since. So it's one of those tools you'd have to prise it out of my fingers now. So.
Well, I think that's the consistent story we're hearing. This is not newfangled.
No.
This has been tried and tested, and they're
Absolutely.
just kind of adding horsepower to it at this point. And it really is. It works like nothing else.
Absolutely, and the core capability is its flexibility. You know, the one thing we say consistently is that FME really gives you the ability to future-proof the projects that you have, because SAFE try to be ahead of the market in terms of connectivity to data sets and data formats, and that means that when a customer that we're talking to has got a standard set of data, they don't care about format, because they know that FME supports the formats and the containers that they've got their data stored in. The point at which they care that FME supports lots of formats is when they get given a new one that they've never seen before, and they can't do anything with it and then they scurry and try and ask us or speak to SAFE and see if they support the format that their new data set is in. And I mean, for me, the main benefit is that FME has allowed me to say yes for 20 years, and that's been superb.
Well, and that's why all the partners seem to be growing as well, even through the pandemic. And so I want to talk a little bit about where you're seeing traction. So my sense is that FME is particularly persuasive and compelling to a certain type of implementation, utilities. I'm hearing governments, places where that spatial data is most valuable. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, so, I mean, our core is government, utilities, transportation, and AEC tends to be the sectors that we do the majority of our larger projects in, but actually FME gives us the ability to talk to a much broader reach, so insurance and banking and human resources tasks and marketing tasks, and those are where spatial is sometimes less important.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about that, because that's interesting. That it's not just the spatial that makes it compelling.
We had a really innovative local authority, so a municipality, government organisation a while back. They took FME on board and they did things with it we never expected. So they effectively use FME as a tool to onboard and offboard staff and contractors through their HRing system. So they have CRMs and human resourcing systems that store records of individuals who work for the business. And as those individuals become employees, they get onboarded, so they get access to a pass to access buildings, they get access to software licenses. And there are metadata records in databases that pertain to that individual at that organization. If that individual changes their status from being an employee to a contractor, or from a contractor to an employee, they can track that individual's transition through the business.
Well, now you're extending to identity access and
absolutely,
all that.
And for them, just getting information about the people when they join is important, but more importantly is the other end, because removing personnel from access is very important. Releasing software licenses and making sure that they can be delivered to new personnel and not just be over allocated in another part of the business is important too. So it was a surprise to us, and it really helps open people's eyes about the capability of FME being good for not just spatial data, but for data.
Yeah, this is where I think an event like this is so interesting and important, is for that organic information, for you to share that, and for people to hear that, and for you to be able to hear other people's implementations, and it's not all just, what you're getting direct from, the marketing department or...
No, absolutely.
Because it really is, best learned in the wild through implementations.
And sometimes people scoff at FME being used for, or having integrations with things like gaming engines, and what's the point? Why? And I think, as we're seeing at the event today, moving from an environment where you're playing with an environment, with a 3D environment, to an application in a building where you're looking at the position of assets or facilities management workflows, where you're looking at trying to understand how many faucets or taps in a building like this are installed, because then you've got a cost to maintaining the bathrooms, the washrooms, and making sure that the washers and the nuts and everything, so that the tap turns on at the end of, during the day. And the cost to replace them or decommission a building because of the inventory that's housed in here, the linear meters of wood that could be repurposed for something. So.
No, it's fascinating, and I think what we've seen at Solutions Review is that I think some people think of data integration as almost rudimentary, and I don't think they truly appreciate the value that you can extract once you really bring data together at another level. And so I'm curious where you see it going as these guys continue to go. Mm-hmm. They saw the keynote today. They have big plans, and they've certainly added a lot of functionality to the platform. But where do you see the opportunities within FME data integration?
Yeah, I really believe the core capability of FME, the connectivity capability, is the unique selling point of the platform. Being able to get at, visualize, inspect, move data from place to place is fundamental. And I don't think that will ever change. And I think that growth of ensuring that FME can always get to different environments is important. SAFE seem to have a mantra that they won't build something if it already exists. If there's another technology solution or another partner in the industry that's doing something already, what they want to do is help partners like ourselves connect to that environment and make sure that we can extract the data and do something with it to get it into the new place where the data needs to be in order to answer the real questions. And I think that is the fundamental capability of FME and will carry the product into the future, because there are devices and systems being built all the time, and that trajectory just doesn't stop. It's like a straight line, stratospheric growth.
Well, and it's almost like if you don't get on top of it, you're going to be left in the dust.
Yeah.
And there's just no way.
The amount of sensors, the things that we've got in our pockets, the technology that, the wearable solutions, the amount of data that we are capturing per second, let alone during a single working week, is phenomenal. And a big challenge is doing something with that data that might just be languishing in a dark, dusty room that nobody can get any answers from.
So what do you? I mean, you're obviously seeing implementations, and you're seeing your customers kind of light up when they realize all the things that they can start to learn from the data integration programs and projects that you're doing. I'm curious, who is driving that in the organizations that you're working with? Where do you find, who should be at the table when they're, thinking about a project? Where are you filling the gaps as the partner? I mean, what are you seeing? I know it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah. No, I mean, we tend to try to operate as trusted advisors. So we'll work with our clients to give them an understanding of what the potential is with the data that they've got. We have a big focus around data quality and making sure that data is fit for purpose before, during, and after it's throughout its
So do they
entire
come
life
to you
cycle.
thinking that, or do they come to you kind of with a much vaguer sense that there's some value here that we just don't recognize? I mean, how much have they thought through before they get kind of your turbocharging?
Yeah, completely mixed. I mean, sometimes it is a very specific challenge. So we see a lot of work with FME and some of our capabilities around moving data from system A to system B.
Right.
That's a really common jumping off point.
Sure.
Right? So we have an organization that adopts a new technology stack. It has a new database, a new schema, a new structure under the bonnet, and we've got to get the existing round peg to go into the square hole over here. And that's a really common workflow that we see. But I think the changes in the market around historically storing huge volumes of data in a database is less common these days. It's much more common to have data at the end of a REST endpoint sitting at a service, and organizations are sharing information between each other, and there's cloud storage mechanisms. And that's sort of the area where customers who have a more traditional outlook are just, even in 2022, are just starting to scratch the surface of.
Yeah, no, I think there's been a lot of cultural resistance around that.
Yeah, and a lot of security concerns.
So, for the security concerns and the particularly the implications of the governance around that.
But things go in cycles, and as individuals, we're starting to use more web services on a daily basis with the apps and things. So that familiarity
and the decision makers are getting younger.
Yeah, scarily so. Yeah.
One last question. In terms of providing advice to somebody who's thinking of giving you a call, and what should they be thinking about before they give you a call? I mean, what would you advise them to really put some deep thought into before they call you up, so when you start asking the questions, they're not saying, let's have another call?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the key thing that we like customers to be able to do is to try and think about a real world, plain English statement of what they want to achieve by the project they want to get involved in. So can you remove all the acronyms and all the jargon and sit down with your colleagues and say, what is good? What is a successful endpoint to this project? And what data inputs do we need to leverage as part of that process? Because if you don't have a clear vision or a feeling of an understanding of what, where you want to go with that project, it can make it much more challenging to be able to navigate through, with all the particular data challenges that crop up. So yeah, it's have a vision, have an understanding of where you want to go, and hopefully then we can start to help people navigate through to that point.
Beautiful.
Of success.
Well, David, thank you very much for the time.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of the show and a great rest of the year.
Superb. Thanks very much. Cheers.